Our assignment was to watch a TED Talk titled Can Art Amend History by Titus Kafer, and then discuss our thoughts on removing Civil War statues and how the TED Talk influenced our opinion. Prior to watching the TED Talk, I was aware of the recent uproar over Civil War statues. There have been several incidences of statues being vandalized, damaged, and even torn down and destroyed. This has occurred in multiple states at various locations, and it's not something that I would consider to be a minor issue. With so much negativity, violence, and death constantly being broadcast on the news, I find myself rarely watching it. And given that fact, I'm far from being continuously up to date on the state of our nation, including each and every example or each and every case involving Civil War statues. However, I was aware of the issue and have seen a few short videos of statues that have that were being or that had been destroyed or damaged. I've always thought that history is very important, and I think that it's important to be educated and knowledgeable of our history to avoid having the negative being repeated. This being said, I was quite taken aback when I first began to hear and see the destruction of the statues. For me, it was hard to understand the motivation or satisfaction that was being gained by such actions. So to better understand the motivation behind it, I have to remember that an object can hold various meanings for different people. When I see a Civil War statue, I associate it with simply being a representation of history, likely representing a well-known person from that time. Others, however, may associate it with slavery, oppression, white power, or anything else, and all of the emotions of hurt and pain that are associated with those topics. Because of my own thoughts on the statues and feeling that history is very important, I was in disagreement with the removal of or destruction of Civil War statues. I also don't necessarily see the purpose in destroying or removing something that represents the past and the history. Our country has made a lot of progress since the Civil War. It's even made great progress in the last 15 to 20 years, as a lot of changes have taken place. So I think efforts could be better used pushing for new things that as a country we want. Titus began the TED Talk by discussing a trip to the Natural History Museum in New York that he took with his children. He recounted his 9-year-old son's thoughts on the statue of Teddy Roosevelt riding a horse with an African American and Native American walking on either side of him. His son found this unfair and questioned why that particular man got to ride the horse and the others had to walk. Titus then goes on to question why something that looks or seems so unfair is outside such an important institution, and whether things like this can be amended. After briefly discussing his education in art history, he shows us a painting that he recreated. It shows a wealthy white family and likely one of their servants. He takes white paint and covers up the white people and elements that the artist has purposely placed to focus our attention on, such as the gold necklace and the lace that the ladies are wearing. One of the points that Titus makes is how he can find out more about the type of silk that the ladies are wearing in the painting than he can about the African American character that's also in the painting. His point by putting the paint on it was not to erase or eradicate the history, but to instead shift our gaze, even if it's just slightly. He stated that he wanted to create art that was an honest representation of history that spoke to a diverse population. His thoughts that were if we could create new amended art with different focus, that we would be able to better understand our history and where we are headed. This video was not exactly what I had expected to be. It did not change my thoughts on the current statues and artwork that we have representing the Civil War and other historical periods, as I feel that they are important and should remain on display. However, I do support Titus's ambition to create art that represents our history in an honest and true way with a shifted focus or gaze. I can easily see how this would speak to more people in a better way, and overall I enjoyed this TED Talk and Titus's thoughts on amended artwork. Thank you.